the priest was sitting on the seat of the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord that Eli watched her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, how long will you be drunk? Put away your wine from you. But Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. This is what I want you to see. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman. In the King James Version, she said, do not consider your maidservant a daughter of Belial, which has to do with wicked people. Notice her trait. Eli thought she was drunk and thought that Hannah was disrespecting God and the house of God. But we know Eli was wrong. But notice Hannah cleared the name. She cleared her name by saying, I am not a daughter of Belial. I'm not drunk, and I don't disrespect God. I don't disrespect God's house. How can we be connected with folk that disrespect God and the house of God? Because that's a trait of wicked folk. They don't respect God nor the things of God. Now, how can I have a close tie with somebody that disrespects God and the things of God? Tell your neighbor it's impossible. Tell your neighbor it's impossible. Tell your neighbor somebody is going to draw somebody. Tell them either you're going to draw them to God or they're going to draw you back to doing what they desire you to do. How many see it? But notice Hannah said, she said, I'm not a daughter of Belial. I'm not wicked. I'm not perverted. Eli, I'm not disrespecting God's house. I was drawn to the altar out of what I was going through. Do y'all see this? Notice, let's take it a little farther. Notice 1 Samuel, number 2. Notice. Oh, my God. Now, the Bible says in 1 Samuel 2 and 12, now the sons of Eli were corrupt. They did not know the Lord. 1 Samuel 2:12. They did not know the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant would come with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was boiling. Then he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot, and the priest would take for himself and all the flesh hook brought up. So they did in Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. This is how they did the offering. Also, they burned the fat. The priest's servant would come and say to the man who sacrificed, give me meat for roasting to the priest. And he would not take boiled meat from you, but raw. Y'all follow me? Notice this. And if a man said to him, they should really burn the fat first, then you shall take much as your heart desire. He would then answer them, no, but yours must give it now. And if not, I will take it by what? Tell your neighbor, when it came to Eli's sons, tell your neighbor they were wicked and messed up. Tell somebody else, when it came to Eli's sons, they were wicked and messed up. Tell your neighbor Eli's sons were sons of Belial. Y'all following me? These boys were corrupt before God. Now I want to give you some names now. Hophni and Phinehas was their names. Now Hophni's name means fighter. But when you study the text, the Bible says about Hophni and Phinehas that they not only disrespected the offerings of God, but the Bible said they laid with the women, hear me, in the church. And Eli knew that his sons wasn't right, and he didn't do nothing about it. Well, y'all listen to me. They were fornicators. They had a bad report in the church and outside the church. Now, Hophni's name means fighter. And in one sense, it's good to be a fighter, but not when you look at the life that he lived. He fought or resisted doing what was right. And see, that's the reason you can't be unequally yoked with an unbeliever that won't come to God, because they're going to fight or resist what's right. Are y'all following me? He resisted. He knew the law of God, but refused to do it. Now, Phinehas, his brother name meant mouth of a serpent. Because what came out of his mouth was poison. You know, a snake is dangerous because of the venom in their mouth. So when it comes to Phinehas, the words that he spoke was dangerous or poisonous. Tell your neighbor, wicked folk, when they speak, there is poison in their mouth to corrupt you from doing the right thing. See, you can't hang with people that are poisoning your mind against God and the things of God. Oh, see, I didn't get that many claps. You can't be tight with somebody that's always speaking negative about your God. Always downing the things of God. Well, why you got to do that? You shouldn't have to do such and such. Tell your neighbor, be careful for people who you like hanging with, but their words are poison. What's coming out of their mouth is dangerous. Are y'all with me? And some of us right now, we are bonded with people that every time they open their mouth, they're saying something contrary to the will of God. And tell your neighbor, like it or not, that stuff can get in your spirit and corrupt your mind and cause you to miss your blessing. I'm not hanging with nobody that's speaking against tithing. I'm not hanging with nobody that's speaking against being faithful in God's house. I'm not hanging with nobody that's against holiness and sanctification. Why? They will corrupt your mind. Tell your neighbor, you have to be careful whose advice you take heed to. Sit down. I want to say something bold right here. Every one of us are where we are right now as a result of who we've been listening to. See, now that was something right there. I said every one of us are where we are right now, and it is a result of who we've been listening to, who advice you've been heeding. See, some of you, you sit up under me week in and week out, but it's not my words that you heed. Tell your neighbor, just have them say, can we just be honest for a minute? Tell your neighbor, just because you come to church, just because you hear the word, don't mean you do the word. Tell your neighbor, there are some of us that are more in tune with people outside the will of God than we are with people in the will of God. And look back at that person and tell them that's dangerous. I'm finna say something. I don't care if that's your mama. That's dangerous. I don't care if that's your childhood friend that you grew up with. Y'all had each other back through junior high, middle school, high school, and 1 year of college before y'all flunked out. You better be careful. Tell your neighbor there are certain lines you have to draw in the sand, no matter who it is. I can't afford to let nothing or nobody pull pull me out of the will of God in a time when God has ordained for increase. I got to watch. I got to be careful who's saying this, that, and the other to me. Tell your neighbor these boys were messed up. And tell your neighbor they hung together tight. Tell your neighbor thick as thieves. But tell your neighbor since they didn't repent, tell your neighbor not only did they hang tight doing evil, but tell your neighbor they died on the same day. So you better be careful who you allow to pull you down. See, some of you, God is trying to raise you up. God is trying to bless you, but you still got certain folk in your ear. And you're giving too much attention to what they're saying instead of what God's word is saying. Tell your neighbor, we got to tighten up. Tell your neighbor, I got to tighten myself up. Tell your neighbor, let's get personal right now. I need to check myself. Oh, see, don't think you know who this word is for. Don't be cutting your eyes across the room talking about, I hope she listening. Don't be peeping out the corner of your eye saying, I wonder if he getting it. You better pull out the mirror this morning and you better check yourself. You better check who you like running with. You better check who you hooked up with. You better check who opinion matter to you more than that of God and your man of God. It's time to pull out the mirror and check yourself. Sit down before we get done with this. And whenever you are entangled with people that you don't need to be hooked up with, no matter how great your plans are, you will never be successful in God. See, I got a few patty cake because some of us feel like it don't matter who we hang with. But tell your neighbor, evil company will corrupt good habits. Tell your neighbor the wrong company can bring you down. Tell them the wrong company can make you do something you said you'll never do. The wrong company can cause you. Go back to 2 Corinthians. Let's get ready to close this thing. See, they were messed up. And see, the bad part about it, Eli wouldn't check them. Oh, see how these parents got quiet then. I said Eli wouldn't check them. He lived with them, but he wouldn't check them. He stayed with them, but he wouldn't put them in their place. Eli was the type parent that believed tapping on the hand instead of coming down hard on them boys. Instead of making a decision that, look, this is not happening in my house. Y'all wicked and you need to get out. Parents, don't allow a wicked child to ruin your entire house. Notice 2 Corinthians. You ain't got but one time to steal from me. I'm just going to tell you about me. Some of you may get mad, but I say you ain't got but one time to steal from me. And when I get done with you, you're going to be scared to touch what belonged to you in the house. I'm going to have to tell you, you can touch it. That's yours, and I gave it to you. You can touch that right there because the fear of God. You think I'm going to sit up and cry about some wild teenager stealing from me, and I put the bread on the table, I put it in the pan, I cook it. You'd be surprised how many parents' lives are in ruin because they didn't know how to cut off their own children. Sit down. They talk about everybody else's child, but when it comes to their child, child is a child. You can't let a child do what they want to do. They're going to choose a corrupt way. Somebody has to stand there and say, not tonight. You don't need to do such and such. Not tonight. But why, mama? Why did? Because I said so. A child will wonder if you don't put the restraints on them. Some of you too busy being a best friend. And that's going to cost you. It's already costing you, but you won't open up your eye. Yeah, you the best friend, but she need a mama right now. She don't need a best friend. A best friend will tell her what she want to hear. She need a mama that'll tell her you ain't